Police officer Jake Morrison had been working the night shift on North Dakota's Highway 85 for 9 years and thought he had seen every oddity one might encounter on empty roads. Hallucinations of drunk oil workers, truck drivers passing out at the wheel, wild animals doing impossible things in the headlights. But nothing had prepared him for the night the road lost its logic. The call came at 2:47 a.m. one night in January. The temperature was -40 degrees, and the wind made it feel like hell had frozen over and decided North Dakota was a wonderful place. Unit 7. There's a stranded driver at the 127-mile marker on Highway 85 northbound. The driver reports the vehicle isn't running and has been there for about 30 minutes. Requesting a status check. Knowing that someone whose car wouldn't start could die within 30 minutes in this cold, Jake headed north from Williston. Highway 85 stretched out before him in complete darkness. No streetlights, no buildings, no signs of civilization, just the endless center line reflected in his headlights. Mile marker 120, mile marker 121, mile marker 122. The road was hypnotic at this hour, straight as a ruler for dozens of miles at a time, nothing but frozen prairie on both sides. Jake had learned to drive it on autopilot while staying alert for the unexpected. Deer, drunk drivers, black ice, or the occasional confused elk. Mile marker 123, mile marker 124, mile marker 125. He should be seeing the stranded vehicle's hazard lights by now. Highway 85 was elevated enough that you could see lights from miles away, but ahead was only darkness. Mile marker 126. Dispatch, Unit 7. I'm approaching mile marker 127. No visual on the stranded vehicle yet. Copy, Unit 7. Driver called back 2 minutes ago, still at location. Vehicle still non-functional. Mile marker 127. Nothing. No vehicle, no hazard lights, no tire tracks in the snow on the shoulder. Jake slowed, scanning both sides of the highway with his spotlight. The prairie stretched away into darkness, wind whipping snow across the frozen ground in serpentine patterns. Dispatch, Unit 7. I'm at mile marker 127. No sign of the vehicle. Can you confirm the location? Stand by, Unit 7. Rita Chen's voice came back after a pause that felt too long. Unit 7, driver is on the line now. She's confirming mile marker 127 northbound, says she can see a patrol vehicle passing but not stopping. Jake felt his skin prickle. Dispatch, I'm stopped at mile marker 127. I'm the only patrol vehicle in this area. I don't see any stranded motorist. Driver says, she's flashing her high beams at you right now. Jake looked around. Empty highway. Nothing but wind and darkness and cold that was trying to find its way through his vehicle's heater. Dispatch, negative on visual contact. No high beams, no vehicle, nothing at this location. Unit 7, driver is insistent. Says she's watching you right now, that you are approximately 50 yards south of her position. Jake drove slowly north, checking his odometer. 50 yards. Mile marker 127 was behind him now. Still nothing. Dispatch, I've passed the location. Still no. He looked at his GPS. Mile marker 127. But he'd just driven past it. He checked his odometer, verified he'd traveled at least a quarter-mile north. But according to GPS and the mile marker he was now passing, he was still at 120 button. Dispatch, I'm experiencing some kind of navigation error. My GPS shows I'm not moving even though I'm driving. Unit 7, what's your actual position? I don't know. I've been driving north for 5 minutes, but every marker I pass says 127 inches. The silence from dispatch told him Rita was trying to process this information without saying what they both knew. This wasn't normal equipment failure. Jake stopped the vehicle, put it in park, and got out into cold so intense it felt like breathing glass. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating nothing but empty road and frozen prairie. He walked forward, boots crunching on frost-covered asphalt. There, in the snow at the road's edge, tire tracks, fresh ones, like a vehicle had pulled onto the shoulder recently. But the tracks didn't continue. They just stopped, as if the vehicle had been lifted straight up into the air. Dispatch, I'm finding evidence of a vehicle at this location, but no vehicle present. Tire tracks terminate without continuation. Unit 7, driver has disconnected. Call ended 1 minute ago. Jake walked north along the highway, following the tire tracks that shouldn't exist. They paralleled the road for about 20 feet, then curved onto the shoulder, then stopped completely. No skid marks, no indication the vehicle had turned around or driven back onto the highway. Just tracks that ended. He returned to his patrol vehicle, checked the time. 3:14 a.m. He'd been at this location for 27 minutes. He put the vehicle in drive and headed north, watching his odometer carefully. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. He passed mile marker 130, then 131, then 132. Navigation seemed normal now. Whatever glitch or anomaly had trapped him at 127 had released. Dispatch, Unit 7. Anomaly resolved, continuing north. Still no sign of the stranded motorist. Copy, Unit 7. For the record, I'm showing the call came from a number registered to Emily Parker, reported missing on Highway 85 in 2019. Vehicle and driver never found. Jake felt ice that had nothing to do with the temperature. Dispatch, are you telling me I just responded to a call from a person who's been missing for 5 years? The call was real, Jake. I spoke with her. She knew protocol, knew her location, sounded normal. But yes, the number matches Emily Parker's cell phone, which has been inactive since 2019. He drove in silence, processing this. Then his radio crackled with a new transmission. Any unit near mile marker 127 on Highway 85. We have a motorist stranded, vehicle non-functional, welfare check requested. Dispatch, Unit 7, I know, Jake, but it's the same call, same number, same location. Emily Parker is calling for help again. Jake made a U-turn, heading back south. As he approached the area, he watched his GPS carefully. Mile marker 125, 126. And then, the loop. His GPS showed mile marker 120 but he kept driving. The marker passed, but his GPS didn't change. He was stuck at 120 Bevan again, driving but not progressing. Trapped in a spatial loop that made no sense, but this time he saw lights. High beams, flashing. About 100 yards ahead on the shoulder, a vehicle, clearly visible, hazard lights blinking. Jake accelerated, closing the distance, but the lights stayed the same distance away. He pushed to 60, 70 miles per hour on the dark highway, but the stranded vehicle remained exactly the same distance ahead, like he was driving on a treadmill while the world moved around him. He slammed the brakes, stopping in the middle of the highway. The flashing lights stayed ahead, stationary, waiting. Dispatch, I have visual on the vehicle, but I can't reach it. Every time I drive toward it, it stays the same distance away. Unit 7, please confirm, are you saying the road is looping? I'm saying space is looping. The road is straight, but distance isn't working normally. I'm trapped in approximately 1 mile of Highway 85 that repeats endlessly. Rita's voice showed strain. Jake, this is going to sound insane, but I need you to listen carefully. My husband David worked this same stretch of highway in 2015. The night he died, his last transmission described the same thing, being trapped at mile marker 127, seeing lights he couldn't reach, GPS showing no progress. What happened to him? Official report says he crashed into a guardrail at high speed. But Jake, there's no guardrail at mile marker 127. Never has been. His vehicle was found 40 miles away at mile marker 167, but his GPS log shows he never left 127. His dashcam footage shows him driving for 3 hours in what looked like a loop, chasing lights he couldn't reach, before the recording just ends. Jake looked ahead at the flashing lights. What am I supposed to do? David's footage showed something else. In the final minutes, he stopped trying to reach the lights. Instead, he drove in reverse. The loop released him, but by then he'd been in there for hours and was disoriented. That's why he crashed. Jake put his vehicle in reverse and backed slowly down Highway 85. His GPS flickered, showing mile marker 126, then 125. The loop was releasing. The flashing lights ahead began moving, coming toward him now instead of staying distant, faster and faster, closing the gap that had been unclosable moments before. Jake watched in his rearview mirror as a vehicle emerged from darkness. A 2019 Honda Civic with emergency flashers on. The driver was a woman in her 30s, matching photos he'd seen of Emily Parker. She pulled alongside his patrol vehicle, which was still backing up. Through her window, he saw her mouth moving, shouting something. Her face was terrified, desperate, trying to communicate. But there was something wrong. Her vehicle looked old, not 5 years old, decades old. The paint was faded and cracked, tires nearly flat, windows fogged like they'd been there for years. And Emily herself looked wrong, her face showing the terror of someone who'd been trapped for far longer than one night. She gestured frantically at something behind Jake's vehicle. He turned to look ahead, the direction he was backing, and saw it. The highway ahead wasn't empty anymore. Dozens of vehicles sat abandoned on the shoulder, some recent, some ancient, all with hazard lights blinking. Cars from every decade, trucks from every era, stretching into the distance like a graveyard of lost travelers. And walking among them, between the vehicles, was a figure. Not human. Not quite. Something tall and thin that moved wrong, joints bending at angles that anatomy didn't allow. It walked between the abandoned vehicles like a farmer inspecting crops, occasionally pausing at one to lean down and look inside, checking to see if anything remained. Dispatch, I need backup at mile marker 127 immediately. I'm seeing... His radio died. Dashboard lights flickered and went out. Engines sputtered and stopped. Jake sat in darkness on a reversed patrol vehicle in the middle of Highway 85, watching the thing move among the abandoned cars, while Emily Parker's ghost or echo screamed silent warnings through her window. The figure turned toward him, and despite the distance, despite the darkness, Jake knew it could see him, had always been able to see him, was coming for him now. His engine roared back to life suddenly, dashboard lights blazing. He threw the vehicle into drive and floored it, rocketing forward, away from the figure and the graveyard of cars. Emily's vehicle kept pace beside him for a moment, then began fading, becoming translucent, until she and her car simply weren't there anymore. Mile marker 128, 129, 130. Normal highway. Normal GPS. Normal everything except his racing heart and the knowledge that something on Highway 85 collected stranded vehicles like specimens, keeping them in a spatial loop until… what? Until there was nothing left to collect? He drove until Williston's lights appeared, then pulled into the State Patrol office parking lot and sat, shaking, trying to make sense of what he'd just experienced. Rita met him inside, already pulling files. David's incident report, Emily Parker's disappearance file, and 14 other cases spanning back to 1987. All vehicles that vanished on Highway 85 near mile marker 127, all during night shifts, all in winter. What is it? What's collecting people out there? I don't know, but David's research suggests Highway 85 passes through some kind of spatial anomaly at that location. Most of the time it's dormant, but certain conditions, extreme cold, specific time windows, electromagnetic activity, activate it. The road loops, space bends, and anything caught in there joins the collection. The collection? Every vehicle that's ever been trapped there. David's footage showed dozens. You saw them too. They're still there, in the loop, preserved like insects in amber, including Emily Parker, who's been calling for help for 5 years, experiencing one long night that never ends. Jake thought about the figure walking among the vehicles. There's something else. Something that tends the collection. Rita nodded grimly. David saw it too, in his final footage. He called it the Keeper, said it maintained the loop, checked the collected vehicles, fed on something. He wasn't clear what. We need to close that section of highway. We've tried. Every time we put up barriers, they disappear. Every time we mark it hazardous, the signs vanish. It's like the loop doesn't want to be found officially. It only reveals itself to lone troopers during specific conditions. So what do I do if I get another call from mile marker 127? You don't respond. You log it, pass it to day shift, and let them find nothing but empty highway. Because once you're in the loop, Jake, the only way out is luck and reverse. David got out but crashed. Emily Parker never got out at all. And based on the vehicles you saw, dozens of others are still in there, living the same night forever while the Keeper walks among them. Jake filed his report, knowing it would be classified with the others. Another incident that officially never happened on a highway, that officially had no anomalies. He went home as dawn broke, trying to sleep, but seeing the figure walking among vehicles, checking its collection. If you've ever driven North Dakota's Highway 85 late at night and felt like you were passing the same mile marker repeatedly, or seen lights ahead that never got closer no matter how fast you drove, or noticed your GPS showing no progress despite constant movement, you've touched the edge of the loop. Most people escape without realizing they were ever caught. But some don't escape. Some join Emily Parker, and the others trapped in a spatial fold that repeats 1 mile of highway endlessly, calling for help to troopers who see their lights but can never reach them, while the Keeper walks its collection, maintaining the loop that has existed at mile marker 127 since long before Highway 85 was built, waiting for the right conditions to snare another vehicle in its endless frozen night. 2 weeks after the mile marker 127 incident, Trooper Jake Morrison was back on night shift with explicit instructions to avoid that section of Highway 85. But North Dakota's empty roads held more than one kind of horror, and the second one found him on Highway 2, 50 miles east of Williston. His new partner, Trooper Sarah Bennett, had transferred from Minneapolis thinking rural patrol would be peaceful. 3 shifts in, she'd learned that peaceful and empty weren't the same thing, and that the darkness between small towns held things that city streets never produced. "So you really saw vehicles trapped in a time loop?" she asked as they cruised through the 1 a.m. darkness, their headlights carving a tunnel through nothing. Spatial loop. Time was normal, space was broken, and yes, I saw it. Dozens of vehicles, all stuck at mile marker 127, including Emily Parker's car from 2019. And dispatch confirmed the call came from her phone. Rita Chen confirmed it. Her husband David experienced the same thing in 2015. The loop's been active since at least 1987, probably longer. We just don't talk about it officially. Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing. What else don't we talk about officially? Before Jake could answer, their radio crackled. Any unit on Highway 2 eastbound, we have a report of a hitchhiker at mile marker 89. Caller states individual appears disoriented, possibly suffering from exposure. Jake and Sarah were 15 miles from that location. Unit 7 responding. ETA 12 minutes. They accelerated through the darkness, Highway 2 stretching ahead in a straight line that seemed to aim for the edge of the world. This was North Dakota's defining characteristic. Roads so long and straight that driving them felt like moving through empty space rather than across land. Hitchhikers in January? Sarah questioned. At negative 30 degrees? It happens. Oil workers get stranded, vehicles break down, people make bad decisions. We'll get there, find someone hypothermic, transport them to the hospital. Standard welfare check. But as they approached mile marker 89, Jake felt that familiar prickle of wrongness. The same instinct that had warned him about the loop at 127 was firing now, telling him this wouldn't be standard anything. They found the hitchhiker exactly where reported, standing on the shoulder at mile marker 89, thumb out, like this was a summer day instead of a January night cold enough to kill in minutes. Jake pulled over, activating his emergency lights. The figure was male, wearing jeans and a light jacket, clothing completely inadequate for the temperature. He should be dead or dying from exposure, but he stood there casually, thumb extended, waiting for a ride like he had all the time in the world. "Sir?" Jake called through his lowered window. "State Patrol. Are you okay? Do you need medical assistance?" The hitchhiker turned toward them, and in the patrol vehicle's lights, Jake saw his face clearly. Young, maybe mid-20s, with a friendly smile that didn't match the temperature or situation. "Just need a ride to Minot," the hitchhiker said, his breath not fogging despite the cold. "Car broke down about 10 miles back. Been walking for a while." "Sir, you're not dressed for this temperature. How long have you been outside?" "Hour or so, I guess. Lost track of time. An hour in this cold, dressed like that, should mean severe hypothermia at minimum. But the hitchhiker showed no signs of cold injury. No shivering, no confusion, no frostbite on exposed skin." Sarah spoke quietly. "Jake, his breath isn't fogging. It's negative 30 degrees. Everyone's breath fogs." Jake saw it too. Or rather, didn't see it. The hitchhiker stood in air so cold it hurt to breathe, but produced no visible condensation. "Sir, I need you to approach the vehicle slowly. Keep your hands visible." The hitchhiker complied, walking toward them with steps that crunched on frozen ground but left no footprints. Jake watched the snow behind him, seeing no impressions, no evidence that he'd walked there at all. "He's not leaving tracks," Sarah whispered, hand moving toward her sidearm. "I see it. Keep calm. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." The hitchhiker reached Jake's window, still smiling that friendly, inappropriate smile. "You guys are lifesavers." "Literally. I don't know how much longer I could have waited out here." "What's your name, sir?" "Michael. Michael Torrance." Sarah sucked in a breath. Jake knew why. She'd done her homework on North Dakota patrol history. Michael Torrance was the name of a hitchhiker picked up on Highway 2 in 1987, by a trooper named William Chen. Michael had been given a ride to Minot, but security footage from the State Patrol Office showed Chen arriving alone. Michael Torrance had simply vanished from the vehicle during the 50-mile drive, and Chen couldn't explain how or when. And 3 days later, another trooper picked up a hitchhiker at mile marker 89 on Highway 2. Same description, same name, same destination, same vanishing act. This had happened 16 times over the past 37 years. Every time, a trooper would pick up Michael Torrance at mile marker 89, drive toward Minot, and somewhere during the journey, he'd disappear from the vehicle without the driver noticing. "Mr. Torrance," Jake said carefully, "what year is it?" The hitchhiker's smile flickered just for a moment. 1987, January 1987. Why? "It's 2024, sir." Michael's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. "That's not right." "I broke down tonight. I've been waiting maybe an hour." "It's January 15th, 1987. "Jake, we need to not pick him up," Sarah said quietly. "Every trooper who gave him a ride experienced missing time, memory gaps, vehicle malfunctions. One crashed and died. Whatever this is, it's not a normal hitchhiker. But protocol was protocol, and leaving someone on the roadside in killing temperatures violated every rule, even if that someone wasn't technically alive or real or whatever Michael Torrance was. "Mr. Torrance, I'm going to need you to stay where you are while we verify some information. I just need a ride to Minot, that's all. Just a ride." Jake backed the patrol vehicle up 20 feet, putting distance between them and the hitchhiker. "Dispatch, Unit 7. We have contact with a subject identifying as Michael Torrance at mile marker 89 on Highway 2. Request any available information on that name." Rita Chen's voice came back almost immediately. "Unit 7. Michael Torrance is flagged in our system. Do not transport. Do not engage beyond verbal contact. Subject is classified as a persistent anomaly. Dispatch, subject appears to require medical attention. He's dressed inadequately for current temperatures. Unit 7, subject does not require medical attention. Subject is not alive in the conventional sense. Maintain distance and observe only." Sarah was already pulling files on her mobile terminal. "Jake, look at this. 16 encounters since 1987. Every single one at mile marker 89. Every single time, he asks for a ride to Minot. But here's the thing. In 1987, before he became whatever he is now, there was an actual Michael Torrance. 23 years old, vehicle broke down on Highway 2. He called for help, but emergency services were delayed by a massive winter storm. By the time a trooper arrived 6 hours later, Michael Torrance was dead from exposure, still sitting in his car, frozen solid. So this is... what? His ghost? An echo? The reports call it a persistent manifestation, like he's still trying to complete his journey to Minot, but stuck in a loop of that night. Every trooper who picks him up experiences the same thing. He rides for a while, talks normally, seems completely real, then simply isn't there anymore. And the trooper loses time. Sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. Jake looked at Michael Torrance, still standing at the roadside, thumb out, smiling his friendly smile. What happens if we don't pick him up? Unknown. No trooper has ever refused before. It's against protocol to leave someone in those conditions. But he's not really someone. He's a manifestation of someone who died 37 years ago. They watched Michael through the windshield. He hadn't moved, hadn't changed position, didn't seem bothered by being observed rather than helped. He just stood there, waiting, like he'd been waiting every night for 37 years. "I'm getting out," Sarah said suddenly. "I need to see something." "Sarah, wait." But she was already out of the vehicle, approaching Michael Torrance with her flashlight. Jake grabbed his own flashlight and followed, keeping his hand near his weapon, even though he knew it would be useless against whatever this was. "Mr. Torrance," Sarah addressed him directly, "do you remember what happened on January 15th, 1987? Do you remember sitting in your car, waiting for help?" Michael's smile faded slightly. Yes. My car broke down. I called for help. I waited. I got so cold. So cold. And then a patrol car arrived and I thought I was saved. But what? But the patrol car just sat there. The trooper looked at me, but didn't get out. Didn't offer help. Just watched me. For hours, until I couldn't feel anything anymore. Until the cold took me. Sarah looked at Jake. He remembers freezing to death. He remembers being watched while it happened. "That doesn't make sense," Jake said. "The report says emergency services were delayed by a storm. No trooper was on scene. Maybe the report is wrong. Or maybe..." Sarah turned back to Michael. Was there really a trooper there that night? Michael's eyes lost focus, like he was seeing something from long ago. There was someone. In a vehicle with lights. They stopped, looked at me, and then just watched. Didn't help. Didn't call anyone. Just watched me freeze. Jake felt sick realization forming. "Dispatch, Unit 7, request information on the first responding officer to the Michael Torrance death in 1987. Rita's voice was tight. "Stand by, Unit 7. The pause was too long. When Rita came back on, her voice carried a weight Jake had never heard before. First responding officer was recorded as Trooper William Chen, my father-in-law, David Chen's father. Sarah understood immediately. The same family. David Chen experienced the loop at mile marker 127 in 2015. His father, William, encountered Michael Torrance in 1987. Are these anomalies targeting the Chen family specifically? Or the Chen family knows more about them than anyone else, Jake said. "Rita, I need the truth. What really happened in 1987? The radio stayed silent for a long moment. Then, William Chen's personal log was sealed after his death in 2001. I accessed it after David died. In it, William describes encountering Michael Torrance alive on Highway 2 in January 1987. But William had just come from mile marker 127, where he'd experienced the spatial loop for the first time. He was disoriented, scared, questioning what was real. When he found Michael Torrance stranded, William convinced himself it was another manifestation, another anomaly. So he didn't help. He watched Michael die, believing he was observing a supernatural phenomenon rather than a real person. Jake stared at the hitchhiker, understanding now. He was real. Michael Torrance was actually alive, freezing to death, and William Chen watched it happen because he thought Michael was already dead or not real. William realized his mistake hours later, after Michael had frozen. He tried to revive him, called for backup, but it was too late. The guilt destroyed William. And Michael's been trying to complete his journey ever since, stuck in that moment, trying to get to Minot, still alive in his own perception, still believing he can be saved if someone just gives him a ride. Michael Torrance looked between Jake and Sarah, confusion replacing his smile. "I don't understand." Why won't you help me? I'm right here. I'm alive. I just need a ride to mine it. Please. I'm so cold." Sarah's voice broke. "You're not cold anymore, Michael. You're not alive anymore. You died 37 years ago because someone who should have helped you didn't. And now you're stuck here, replaying this night over and over, still trying to get help that will never come. That's not true. I'm here. I'm real. I can feel the cold. Please, just give me a ride." "We can't help you by giving you a ride," Jake said gently. "Every time we do, you disappear partway there. You never reach mine it. You just end up back here, waiting again." Michael's form flickered, like a hologram losing signal. "I don't understand. I just want to go home. My girlfriend's waiting. I promised her I'd be there tonight. I'm just a little late. I just need—" He vanished mid-sentence, simply ceasing to exist. One moment standing there, the next gone completely, leaving no trace he'd ever been present. "Does he come back?" Sarah asked quietly. "Every night. Next time a trooper drives past mile marker 89 between midnight and 3 a.m., he'll be there again. Same place, same request, same ending. He's been doing it for 37 years. They returned to their vehicle, sitting in silence, watching the empty spot where Michael Torrance had stood. After a few minutes, Sarah spoke. "If we can't help him by giving him a ride, is there another way? Can we break his loop somehow?" Jake thought about Emily Parker, trapped at mile marker 127 for 5 years. About David Chen, who escaped the loop but died shortly after. About all the anomalies on North Dakota's empty roads, and how none of them seemed escapable. "I don't know, but maybe that's the question we should be asking. Not how to avoid these anomalies, but how to end them." Over the following weeks, Jake and Sarah researched every documented anomaly on North Dakota highways. The loop at mile marker 127. Michael Torrance at mile marker 89. And others, a phantom vehicle that followed troopers on Highway 200, a rest stop on Highway 52, where time moved differently, a stretch of Highway 6 where radio communications always failed during specific moon phases. They found patterns. Every anomaly traced back to traumatic deaths. People who died on these roads in circumstances where help didn't arrive, or arrived too late. Emily Parker calling for rescue that never came. Michael Torrance freezing while being watched by someone who thought he wasn't real. 17 truckers who died in a pileup on Highway 200 during a whiteout, creating the phantom vehicle that now followed patrol cars as if still trying to find help. "They're all trying to complete something," Sarah theorized. Emily trying to get help, Michael trying to reach Minot, the truckers trying to warn others about the whiteout. They're stuck in their final moments, repeating their last actions eternally. So, how do we unstick them? Maybe we can't. Maybe that's the horror of it. They're permanent recordings in the landscape, trauma so intense it imprinted on reality itself. All we can do is acknowledge them and try not to make more. But Jake wasn't satisfied with that answer. He returned to mile marker 89 alone one night, waiting until Michael Torrance appeared right on schedule. "Michael, my name is Jake Morrison. I'm a state trooper. I want to help you, but not by giving you a ride. I want to help you understand what happened." Michael's perpetual smile faltered. "I don't understand. Are you going to help me or not? I'm going to tell you the truth. In January 1987, your car broke down on Highway 2. You called for help, but a winter storm delayed emergency response. A trooper named William Chen arrived but didn't help you. He thought you were something else, something not real, and you froze to death waiting for rescue." "No, that's not. I'm here. I'm alive. I can feel myself standing here. You're an echo, Michael. A persistence. The trauma of dying alone created a loop, and you've been stuck in it for 37 years. Every night you appear here, asking for rides, trying to get to Minot, but you never arrive because you didn't survive to arrive. Michael's form flickered violently. I have a girlfriend. Kelly. She's waiting for me in Minot. I promised I'd be there tonight. January 15th. Our anniversary. I can't be late. It's 2024, Michael. Kelly isn't waiting anymore. 37 years have passed. I'm sorry, but you need to stop trying to get to Minot. You need to accept that the journey ended that night. I can't. I promised. I have to. You have to let go. The guilt isn't yours. It's William Chen's. He should have helped you. His failure isn't your burden to carry forever. Michael's form stabilized slightly, his expression showing the first real emotion Jake had seen. Grief, understanding, acceptance beginning to break through the loop. I'm really dead? All this time I've been dead? Yes, but you don't have to be stuck here anymore. You can stop repeating this night. You can move on. For a moment, Michael's form became more solid, more real than before. He looked at Jake with clear eyes. Will you tell Kelly? Tell her I tried to get there. Tell her I'm sorry I was late. I'll find her. I'll tell her. Michael nodded slowly, and then his form began fading differently than before, not vanishing abruptly but dissolving gradually, peacefully, like fog burning away in sunrise. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for finally stopping. He disappeared completely, and this time Jake felt the difference. The air at mile marker 89 felt different, lighter, like a weight had lifted. Over the next week, Jake tracked down Kelly Morrison, married name now, living in Minot, 60 years old. He showed up at her door in uniform, and she knew immediately why he was there. Michael, she said simply. You found him. Or he found you. You knew? About the loop? I drove Highway 2 at night for years, hoping to see him. I did, twice. Both times I stopped, but he didn't recognize me. I was too old, wasn't the Kelly he remembered. He just asked for a ride to Minot like I was a stranger. I couldn't bear to see him trapped like that, so I stopped looking. But I always knew he was out there, trying to get to me. He's not anymore. I told him the truth. He finally understood and let go. His last words were asking me to tell you he tried to get there, and he's sorry he was late. Kelly cried quietly for the boyfriend she'd lost 37 years ago, who'd been trying to reach her every night since. Thank you. Thank you for finally helping him stop trying. Jake reported the resolution to Rita Chen, who filed it in the classified archive with the other anomaly cases. That's the first time anyone successfully ended one of these loops. How did you know it would work? I didn't. I just thought that maybe they're stuck because they don't understand they're stuck. Like they're in denial about what happened. Michael didn't know he was dead. Maybe Emily Parker doesn't either. Maybe none of them do. They're repeating their final moments because they haven't accepted that those were their final moments. Are you suggesting we try to release the others? I'm suggesting we try. Because living eternally in your worst moment, not even understanding that you're dead, that's a horror nobody deserves. Even if it means confronting each one and making them relive their death. Sarah joined Jake's project, and together they began working through North Dakota's documented anomalies. It was dangerous work, approaching manifestations, trying to make them understand their situations, sometimes succeeding but often failing, or making things worse. The phantom vehicle on Highway 200 couldn't be reasoned with. It was 17 consciousnesses merged into one confused entity that didn't remember being human. The rest stop, where time moved differently, was empty of consciousness entirely, just a spatial distortion with no trapped person to release, but Emily Parker at mile marker 127. That was the big one. The one Jake kept returning to, despite Rita's warnings, despite knowing it had killed David Chen, despite understanding that the spatial loop was more dangerous than simple haunting. "I'm going back in," Jake told Sarah one February night. "Emily Parker has been in that loop for 5 years. If I can reach her, make her understand, maybe I can end it. And if you get trapped, then you know how to get me out. Drive in reverse. That's what worked before. That's what got David Chen out, and he crashed and died from disorientation. I'll be prepared." I know what to expect now. Jake approached mile marker 127 at 2 a.m. with every precaution in place. Emergency beacon active, backup vehicle following at safe distance, constant radio contact with dispatch. When the loop activated and his GPS locked at 127, he didn't panic. He drove toward Emily Parker's flashing lights, and this time he understood. He wasn't supposed to reach her by driving forward. That was the trap. Instead, he stopped, put the vehicle in park, and got out. He walked toward her lights on foot. The distance didn't shift when he walked. He covered ground normally, boots on frozen asphalt, until he reached Emily Parker's 2019 Honda Civic, still sitting exactly where it had been the night she'd called for help, 5 years ago. Emily sat in the driver's seat, cell phone in hand, looking exactly as her photos showed. 34 years old, confused and scared, waiting for help that had taken 5 years to arrive. "Emily?" Jake tapped on her window. She rolled it down, relief flooding her face. "Oh, thank God. I've been waiting forever. My car won't start, and it's so cold. I called for help, but nobody came. Or people drove by but didn't stop. I don't understand what's happening." "Emily, I need to tell you something difficult. You disappeared on Highway 85 in November 2019. It's February 2024 now. You've been trapped in this location for over 5 years. That's insane. I called for help an hour ago, maybe 2 hours. Time got weird, but it hasn't been 5 years. Look at your car, Emily." Really look at it. She did, seeing for the first time how aged it appeared. Paint faded, tires nearly flat, interior showing years of exposure. How? You're caught in a spatial loop, the same mile of highway, repeating endlessly. Every night you wait for help, and every night help can't reach you because space is folded wrong here. You're not experiencing time normally. To you, it's been hours. To the outside world, it's been years. Emily's hands shook. "I want to go home. I want to see my family. Please get me out of here." "I'm trying. But first, you need to understand what happened. You didn't just get lost. You died here, Emily. Exposure, probably. Your body was never found because it's still here, preserved in the loop. What I'm talking to is your consciousness, trapped in your final moments, repeating them eternally. No, I'm not dead. I'm right here. I'm talking to you. I'm alive. You feel alive because consciousness doesn't die immediately. You're experiencing your last hours stretched across years. But Emily, you need to accept this. You need to stop trying to get help and start trying to let go." She started crying, understanding beginning to break through denial. "My daughter. She was 3 years old. She'll be 8 now. She doesn't even remember me." "She remembers you. Your family never stopped looking. But you can't go back to them. You can only move forward, beyond this loop, beyond this moment." Emily looked at the darkness surrounding them. Not natural night darkness, but the darkness of trapped space, of reality folded in on itself. What happens if I let go? I don't know, but it has to be better than staying here forever. She sat in her car, tears streaming, making the hardest decision a consciousness could make. Accepting death. Accepting that the life she'd been fighting to return to was already over. Accepting that letting go was the only way to stop suffering. Tell my daughter I loved her. Tell her I'm sorry I was late. I will. Emily Parker closed her eyes, and her form began fading the same way Michael Torrance's had. Gradually, peacefully, a weight lifting. Her car faded with her, the loop releasing, mile marker 127 returning to normal empty highway. Jake walked back to his patrol vehicle, feeling the spatial distortion release completely. His GPS showed normal function. The road extended forward properly. The collection of trapped vehicles he'd seen before was gone. Whether because Emily's presence had been sustaining it, or because her release had freed the others too, he couldn't know. But mile marker 127 was just a highway marker again. Not a trap, not a collection point, just a number on North Dakota's endless roads. The passenger that never gets out until a trooper finally stops trying to give them a ride and instead helps them understand they've already reached the end of their journey. The highway ghosts trapped in final moments until someone cares enough to make them see the truth they've been denying. The anomalies that persist because death doesn't always announce itself clearly, and consciousness can remain stuck in place, repeating last actions, waiting for help or resolution or acknowledgement that will never come unless someone breaks protocol and tells them what they need to hear. You're dead. It's over. You can stop now. You can rest. March brought the thaw, and with it came the phenomenon that old-timers called the convoy, a manifestation so dangerous that State Patrol had standing orders to avoid Highway 200 between Stanley and Sanish during the spring months. But Trooper Jake Morrison and his partner Sarah Bennett had learned that avoiding anomalies didn't make them go away, and some manifestations needed to be confronted. The call came through dispatch at 11:47 p.m. Multiple reports of a convoy of semi-trucks driving erratically on Highway 200, speeds exceeding 90 miles per hour. No lights, no response to attempts to signal them to stop. Unit 7. Be advised this matches the pattern of the Highway 200 phenomenon, Rita Chen warned. Exercise extreme caution. Do not attempt direct interception. Copy, dispatch. What's the history on this one? Rita's voice was heavy with information she wished she didn't know. February 1994. 17 commercial vehicles in a chain reaction pileup under whiteout conditions. All of the drivers perished, some from hypothermia when they fled into the blizzard, others from impact, and some from being trapped in burning taxis. Since then, the convoy has shown up on nights when the temperatures coincide during the spring thaw. In an effort to finish deliveries that were stopped 30 years ago, 17 trucks are traveling in formation. Jake and Sarah positioned themselves on Highway 200, watching for the manifestation. Unlike Emily Parker or Michael Torrance, who were individual consciousness loops, the convoy was something more complex. 17 minds merged into one confused collective entity, unable to separate their individual deaths, experiencing all 17 fatal outcomes simultaneously. They saw the headlights first, a wall of them, approaching from the west at impossible speed. 17 semi-trucks in tight formation, driving faster than any commercial vehicle should safely travel, their engines roaring with a sound that seemed to come from 30 years away. Jake, we should fall back, Sarah advised, watching the convoy approach. Those trucks aren't slowing down. If they're repeating the crash, they're going to pile up right here. However, Jake noticed something that wasn't covered in the reports. One particular truck, a red Peterbilt with recognizable chrome stacks, was in the lead of the convoy. He recognized it from the pictures of the accident. Daniel Morrison's truck was that one. His uncle. Daniel had passed away 8 years before Jake was born, so he was the only member of the family that Jake had never met. My uncle is in charge of them. What? Morrison, Daniel, the brother of my father. He was among the 17. I was unaware that he was involved in this manifestation. My family never discussed it. The convoy roared past them, and Jake made a split-second decision. He pulled onto Highway 200, falling in behind the 17 trucks, matching their speed. Jake, what are you doing? I need to talk to my uncle. If these consciousnesses can be released like Emily and Michael were, I need to try. And Daniel might listen to family. 17 merged consciousnesses is different from one. We don't know what happens if you try to separate them. But Jake was committed now, accelerating to keep pace with the convoy. Through his windshield, he could see the trucks in formation. Perfect spacing, synchronized movements, like one organism with 17 bodies. His radio crackled with a voice he'd never heard, but somehow recognized. Dispatch, this is Convoy Leader Morrison. We have whiteout conditions on Highway 200, multiple vehicles, visibility 0. Requesting road closure and emergency services at mile marker 45. It was his uncle's voice, calling for help that had arrived too late in 1994, repeating the transmission eternally. Daniel Morrison, this is Trooper Jake Morrison, Jake transmitted. Daniel, I'm your brother Carl's son. I need you to listen to me. The convoy's formation wavered slightly, trucks drifting before correcting. Daniel's voice came back confused. Carl? My brother Carl? He's 12 years old. What are you talking about? In your memory, yes. But it's 2024 now, Daniel. Carl grew up, got married, had me. You've been gone for 30 years. 30 years? That's impossible. We're driving to Minot. There's a storm. We need to... You need to stop. All of you. The storm killed 17 drivers in February 1994. You're caught in a loop, replaying that night over and over. The convoy's speed increased, trucks pulling ahead. Jake struggled to keep pace as they approached 90 miles per hour on dark highway. We can't stop, Daniel's voice came back, but now it was mixed with others, 17 voices overlapping. We have deliveries. We have schedules. We have families waiting. We have to complete the route. We always complete the route. That's the job. Complete the route. The route ended 30 years ago. All of you died. You're not delivering anything. You're just repeating your final run. The convoy's formation broke suddenly, trucks scattering across all lanes like they were trying to avoid something only they could see. Jake watched in horror as they began the crash in slow motion. Just like the accident photos showed, each truck finding its historically accurate position in the pileup that had killed 17 men. No, Daniel, you don't have to repeat this. You can stop. Choose to stop. But the crash was happening, had always been happening, would always happen. The lead truck, Daniel's Peterbilt, jackknifed across both lanes. The second truck tried to swerve, failed, impacted at 45 degrees. The third, fourth, fifth trucks piled in, each finding their precise position in a choreographed disaster that had occurred 30 years ago. Jake slammed his brakes, watching the pileup occur exactly as documented, 17 trucks creating a wall of twisted metal and shattered glass across Highway 200. Then came the fire, flames erupting from ruptured fuel tanks, the same fire that had killed 5 of the drivers in 1994. But something was different this time. The The trucks weren't solid. They flickered, phasing between substantial and translucent, like the crash was happening across multiple realities simultaneously. And walking away from the burning wreckage were figures. 17 drivers, some burned, some bloodied, some showing hypothermia's blue-white skin, all confused and disoriented, all staring at the accident they'd just experienced. Jake approached slowly, hands visible. No threat. "Daniel Morrison?" One of the drivers turned, a man in his 40s who looked remarkably like Jake's father, wearing a plaid flannel jacket and trucker's cap. "Who are you?" "I'm your nephew." "Carl's son. You died in this crash in 1994. All 17 of you died, and you've been replaying it every spring since then, unable to move on because you're trapped together, your consciousnesses merged into one confused entity." The 17 drivers looked at each other, understanding beginning to dawn. One of them, a woman in her 30s, spoke. "I remember dying. The impact broke my neck. But then I was driving again, and crashing again, and dying again, over and over." Another driver. "I burned. I remember burning. But I also remember freezing to death outside, and I remember bleeding out in my cab. How can I remember all three?" "Because you're experiencing all 17 deaths simultaneously," Jake explained. "Your consciousnesses merged in the moment of the accident, and you've been stuck together ever since, unable to separate, unable to move on because you can't agree on how you died or what happened. You're 17 people trying to remember one event from 17 perspectives." Daniel Morrison looked at the burning wreckage, then at the other 16 drivers. "We need to separate. We need to remember our own deaths, not everyone's deaths. Yes, each of you needs to acknowledge your individual end. Stop trying to complete the convoy's route and complete your own route, the one that ends here." It wasn't easy. The 17 consciousnesses had been merged for so long that separating them felt like tearing apart a single entity. But slowly, painfully, each driver began focusing on their own experience, their own death, their own final moments. The woman who'd died from the broken neck separated first, her form stabilizing as she stopped experiencing the burns and the bleeding and the freezing. She looked at Jake with clear eyes. "Tell my daughter I'm sorry I missed her graduation. I was trying to get home for it. I'll find her. I'll tell her." She faded peacefully, released. One by one, the other drivers followed, each acknowledging their specific death, each separating from the collective trauma, each finally able to move beyond the moment that had trapped them. Daniel Morrison was last. He stood beside Jake, watching the others fade, then looked at the burning Peterbilt that had been his tomb. "Carl never knew what happened to me. The storm, the accident, it was chaos. They told him I died instantly, but that wasn't true. I was trapped in the cab for hours, knowing I was dying, thinking about all the things I'd never get to do. Never see Carl grow up, never meet his kids, never retire like I'd planned. He missed you his whole life, talked about you all the time, named me Jake because it was your middle name." Daniel smiled sadly. "Jake Daniel Morrison. I always liked that name. Tell Carl I'm proud of him, and tell him it's okay to stop missing me. I'm not in pain anymore." "I will." Daniel's form began fading, but before he disappeared completely, he looked at Jake with serious expression. "There are more of us out here. More anomalies. Not all of them can be released as easily as Michael or Emily or the convoy. Some are too far gone, too merged with the landscape. Be careful which ones you try to free." How do I know which ones can be freed? The ones who can still communicate. The ones who still remember being human. Those can be helped. But the others, the ones that are just energy or pattern or pure manifestation, those are part of the road now. Trying to free them might destroy them completely, not release them. How many are there? On North Dakota highways? Dozens, maybe hundreds. 30 years of deaths, decades of trauma, all of it leaving imprints. You can't save them all, Jake. Don't destroy yourself trying. Daniel Morrison faded completely, and with him went the burning wreckage, the 17 trucks, the entire manifestation of the Highway 200 convoy. The road returned to normal. Empty, dark, just another stretch of North Dakota highway under spring stars. Sarah had watched the entire interaction from the patrol vehicle. That was different from the others. 17 at once. Did it work? Are they all released? I think so. They needed to separate, to stop experiencing each other's deaths. Once they could distinguish their individual ends, they could accept them and move on. They drove back toward Williston in silence, both processing what they'd witnessed. Jake thought about his uncle, trapped for 30 years in a merged consciousness loop, experiencing 17 deaths simultaneously, unable to rest because he couldn't separate his own death from the collective trauma. How many others were out there, stuck in similar loops? How many could be helped, and how many were too far gone? Over the following months, Jake and Sarah made it their mission to document and attempt to release every manifestation on North Dakota highways. They had successes. A phantom patrol car on Highway 52 that turned out to be Trooper James Wilson, who died of a heart attack on duty in 2008 and kept driving his route because he didn't realize he'd died. A woman who appeared at a rest stop on Highway 6, waiting for her husband who'd gone for help when their car broke down in 1972 and never returned. But they had failures too. An entire bus full of children on Highway 281 that couldn't be communicated with. Just a repeating loop of a 1967 accident. The consciousnesses too young or too traumatized to understand release. A manifestation on Highway 1 that seemed to be pure energy. No human consciousness remaining, just the echo of a death so violent it had scarred reality itself. We can't save them all, Sarah said, after a particularly difficult attempt to reach the bus passengers. Some are beyond help. Some are too damaged or too young or too confused. Daniel warned me about that, said some are too merged with the landscape to separate. So what do? Just document them? Warn troopers to avoid them? We help who we can, and honor the ones we can't. That's all anyone can do. But the work took its toll. Jake found himself dreaming about the manifestations, seeing Michael Torrance's smile and Emily Parker's confusion, and Daniel Morrison's 17 deaths. Sarah started showing signs of what Dr. Cross, the patrol psychologist, called manifestation fatigue, the psychological strain of constantly confronting death and trying to help consciousness move beyond trauma. You're both pushing too hard, Rita Chen told them during a mandatory psych evaluation. I understand the mission, I support it, but you're burning out, and burned-out troopers make mistakes that get them killed or trapped in the very loops they're trying to release others from. We're fine, Jake insisted. David said that too, right before the loop at mile marker 127 killed him. And William said it before Michael Torrance's manifestation destroyed his sanity. The Chen family has lost 2 generations to these anomalies. I won't lose anyone else. We're being careful. Careful isn't enough when you're dealing with traumatized consciousness that doesn't follow normal rules. You need to rest. Step back. Let day shift handle routine calls for a while. But Jake and Sarah couldn't step back, because the anomalies weren't just manifestations to them anymore. They were people who needed help, consciousness stuck in horrible moments, trauma that deserved acknowledgement and release. Until the night they encountered something that made them understand Rita's warnings. 6 months after releasing the Highway 200 convoy, Trooper Jake Morrison responded to a call on Highway 85 south of Williston. A stranded motorist at mile marker 89. Not the same location as Michael Torrance, but close enough to make him cautious. He arrived to find a pickup truck on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking, a man standing beside it looking confused and disoriented. "Sir, are you okay?" Jake approached with standard protocol. The man turned, and Jake felt recognition like ice water. He was looking at himself. An older version, maybe 10 years older, wearing a state patrol uniform, standing beside what appeared to be Jake's own patrol vehicle. "Don't do what I did," the other Jake said, his voice carrying exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. "Don't keep trying to free them all. Some can't be freed, and trying to free them traps you instead. What are you?" "I'm you. A version of you, from a timeline where you didn't stop, where you kept pushing, kept trying to free every manifestation on every highway. And eventually one of them pulled me in. Now I'm stuck, repeating this night, trying to warn past versions of myself to stop before they end up here too." Sarah pulled up behind Jake, getting out of her vehicle. "Jake, who are you talking to?" "You can't see him?" "See who?" "There's no one there." Jake looked at the other version of himself, understanding with sick certainty. "I'm becoming a manifestation. I've spent so much time with them, so much energy trying to reach them, that I'm starting to phase into their reality." The future Jake nodded sadly. "It happens to anyone who pushes too hard. Rita's husband David was starting to phase when he died. My father William was too. The anomalies pull at you, and if you're not careful, you become one of them. How do I stop it? You already have. By seeing me, by understanding the warning, you're choosing differently than I did. I couldn't stop. I thought I could save everyone. And that obsession destroyed me. But you can stop. You can rest. You can let others continue the work while you recover. But there are still so many. There will always be more. North Dakota's highways are long and empty and lonely deaths leave marks. You can't erase all of them. All you can do is help where you can, and survive where you can't. The future Jake began fading. Not peacefully like the released manifestations, but struggling, like he was being pulled back into a loop he couldn't escape. "Tell Sarah I'm sorry. Tell her I should have listened when she said to rest." He vanished completely, leaving Jake standing alone on the empty highway shoulder, Sarah watching him with concern. "Jake? What just happened?" "I saw myself. A version of me that didn't stop pushing, that became trapped like the others." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Rita was right. We need to rest. We need to step back before we lose ourselves." They requested temporary reassignment to day shift, giving themselves distance from the night highways and their manifestations. Jake started regular sessions with Dr. Cross, working through the trauma of confronting so much death, so much stuck consciousness. But they didn't stop completely. They just learned to pace themselves, to accept limitations, to understand that helping some was better than destroying themselves trying to help all. Over the next year, they released 4 more manifestations successfully. They documented 18 others that couldn't be released, but could be predicted and avoided. They trained other troopers in recognition protocols, teaching them to distinguish between normal emergencies and anomalous loops. And slowly, North Dakota's night highways became slightly less haunted. Not empty of manifestations, Those would persist as long as lonely deaths occurred on empty roads. But fewer troopers got trapped. Fewer drivers disappeared into spatial loops. Fewer consciousness stayed stuck because someone understood how to reach them. Jake visited Daniel Morrison's grave, telling him about Carl's life, about the family Daniel had never met. He tracked down Emily Parker's daughter, now 8 years old, delivering the message her mother had asked him to carry. He found Kelly Morrison and told her Michael Torrance's last words, bringing closure 37 years after his death. And he kept driving North Dakota's highways, but with understanding that had cost him a glimpse of a future where he became what he'd been trying to help. The manifestations were still there. Emily's mile marker 127, Michael's mile marker 89. The spots where the Highway 200 convoy had crashed. But now they were waypoints of resolution rather than active traps, places where consciousness had finally been released after years or decades of being stuck. Rita Chen retired after 30 years of dispatch, finally able to rest, knowing that the anomalies that had taken her father-in-law and her husband were understood better now. Manageable, rather than simply terrifying, Sarah Bennett made detective, specializing in cases involving the manifestations, coordinating with other state patrols across the northern states where long empty highways and isolated deaths created similar phenomena. And Jake Morrison continued working night shift on North Dakota's endless roads, but with balance now. He helped the manifestations he could reach, honored the ones he couldn't, and remembered that surviving to help tomorrow was better than destroying himself trying to save everyone today. The highways still remembered. Every traumatic death, every lonely end, every consciousness stuck in final moments, all of it remained imprinted on the landscape. But now there were people who understood, who could help, who knew that sometimes the most terrifying thing about death wasn't death itself, but being trapped in it eternally, calling for help that never came, repeating final moments in loops that never resolved. North Dakota's night shift remained the most isolated law enforcement work in America. Hundreds of miles of empty darkness, extreme temperatures, minimal backup, and the constant knowledge that the roads themselves were haunted by everyone who'd died on them. But it was also the most meaningful work Jake had ever done. Because everyone who died alone deserved to be found. Everyone trapped in trauma deserved to be released. Everyone calling for help deserved someone to finally stop and listen and understand and help them move on. The hitchhiker who never gets in. The convoy that never arrives. The loop that never ends. The manifestations that persist because death doesn't always announce itself clearly. And consciousness can remain stuck, repeating, waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough or compassionate enough to confront them and say, "I see you, I understand what happened to you, I'm here to help you accept it and move beyond it." And if you've ever driven North Dakota's highways late at night and felt like someone was in the vehicle with you, even though you're alone, or seen lights that shouldn't be there, or experienced time feeling strange, or noticed your GPS showing the same mile marker repeatedly, you've touched the edge of their world. The world of the manifestations, the stuck consciousness, the traumatized echoes that wait on empty roads for release that might never come. Unless someone stops, unless someone listens, unless someone cares enough to break protocol and help them understand they can finally stop trying to complete journeys that ended long ago. If you found this story of North Dakota's haunted highways as chilling as we did researching it, hit that like button. It helps us continue documenting these real cases that law enforcement won't officially acknowledge. And if you want to hear more true horror stories from America's empty roads, subscribe and turn on notifications. We post new documented cases every week, always based on actual incident reports that were classified or suppressed. Because the truth about what happens on lonely highways is more terrifying than any fiction, and someone needs to tell these stories so the trapped consciousness aren't forgotten completely. Stay safe out there. And if you ever find yourself on an empty highway at night, seeing the same mile marker repeatedly, or watching lights that won't get closer no matter how fast you drive, remember that you're not alone. The roads remember everyone who died on them, and some of those memories are still trying to reach someone, anyone, who can finally help them rest.